Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, a special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2022, Wednesday, July 27th. I am Dave Bryan, and I am, of course, joined by Alex Kozora, fresh off of his first trip back to and from Latrobe, Saint Vincent, first time since, I think, 2019. Alex, happy Wednesday. We're doing this a little bit earlier than we normally do.
We are, and I'll take that. So as if there weren't enough changes, it's a 1:55 practice and a pretty short one at that on day one, just about probably a bit under 90 minutes. And so really good. I was driving in to the back way, Saint Vincent, because it's a really pretty drive. And as I kind of saw the whole campus, I went, man, it's been 3 years since I've last been there. So really happy to be back for a lot of reasons today.
Absolutely. And before we get started here, first, if you're new to the special edition podcast, we try to do them every evening following the Steelers, the days that they have camp practices on. Obviously, we still do the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday regular editions of the Terrible Podcast. And some of that stuff obviously will carry over that we talk about in these recap podcasts, if you will. And, you know, if you've never listened to the Terrible Podcast full editions before, we invite you to do that. If you don't, and you just want to listen to these training camp recap ones, do so at, however you deem fit and all. So we appreciate having everybody back again for these podcasts. Usually go over real well. We generally try to keep them around 45 minutes at most, but sometimes my big mouth will run a little bit long, but that's the goal. Today's probably will be a little bit longer, maybe because it was the first day of training camp here. And additionally, a shout out to Lynn Testa at Touring Plans. He's back being the sponsor of the special edition podcast once again. Anything related, especially to Disney or travel plans or booking trips, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you support one of your own. Lynn Testa has been in the business for years doing it. Top-notch website to go along with it. He responds to people on Twitter as well too. It's really like having your own personal travel agency, if you will, there with that. And once again, especially if you're doing something Disney related, but I think he can help people out with really any kind of trip stuff, right, Alex?
Yeah, I believe so. But Len's been a long-time sponsor, one of the first sponsors of the training camp experience and what we've done, dating back to, 2015 now. And so really happy to have him be a sponsor again, and a really good friend, and Touring Plans is the place to go for your next trip to Disney.
All right. And that's touringplans.com, right?
Yes.
All right. Let's get after it here. And as usual, we start with a little bit of housekeeping here of who practiced or who got injured during the day. And we'll start off first with the obvious kind of stuff. Minkah Fitzpatrick and Tyson Alualu are not practicing at the start of camp. Minkah Fitzpatrick with a wrist injury, falling off of a bike at some point during the offseason. He's on the non-football injury list, the active version of that. Tyson Alualu with a knee swelling is on the active PUP list. Tyson doesn't seem to be too concerned about it to start with, but we'll just have to see how these things go. I'm probably not expecting those guys to practice for a little while here. It might be for a little while plus a few days, if you will, but we'll keep updating people on that. Larry Ogunjobi, obviously not on PUP list, and that might be one of the more underrated storylines, I think, here at the start of this year's training camp here, because there was a decent chance that he started off on PUP coming off of that foot surgery. He's obviously not a full participant, but he is doing something out there, right, Alex, in camp to start off with?
Yes, he was in individual work today, not in team. And so that is kind of the slow play process Mike Tomlin referred to yesterday and talked about today in his press conference. And so he is out there. He is healthy. He's practicing, just not fully in team.
Right. And that's big news in and of itself. And hopefully they'll start ramping him up. Like Mike Tomlin said, because he's coming off of that surgery, because they don't really fully know him yet, they're going to take it easy on him. Now, during practice on Wednesday, had Miles Killebrew, some sort of pectoral injury that needs evaluation, according to Mike Tomlin. So keep your fingers crossed. There's nothing serious there. TD Moultrie, the rookie edge rusher out of, I believe, Auburn, had some cramping. That's probably not too surprising for a rookie on the first day of training camp there. I think Tim Rice, who once again, our photographer Tim Rice, is at Latrobe and joining Alex there for several days. Got a nice snapshot of I think Moultrie having to be carted back up the hill, back to the dorms to probably get some fluids in him and all like that. Who am I missing here? I think that's the injury list to start with, right, Alex?
Correct. In terms of the guys that, did not practice today or, missed practice or got hurt during practice, I should say, Minka, it's a right wrist, and for Tyson, it's a left knee. So if you really want to get specific about what the ailments are, those appear to be the two. And then, of course, not practicing today in individual or team, not injury related, but financially related, it appears, is wide receiver Deontay Johnson. He did go through some of the very early warm-up work, was in stretch line, but no individual and no positional drills, and then no team drills. And so I assume that's going to be status quo until a new deal happens, if a new deal happens.
Contusion of the wallet, right?
There you go.
Contusion of the bank account, I guess. And, Mike Tomlin, Mike Tomlin's not, even though Mike Tomlin said on his first press conference that kind of insinuated didn't think something like this would happen. Probably deep down, he probably thought there was a chance of it just the same. We'll have to see the path Deontay takes here. And, I know a lot of people listening to this aren't happy with it, but it is similar to what T.J. Watt did a year ago there. Now, people will say, well, T.J. Watt deserved to do that, and Deontay doesn't. If that's your train of thought, hey, you're absolutely entitled to it. We shall see if this kind of hold in, if you will, turns out to be fruitful. Johnson talked to the media before practice, and in so many words, I think, he said that, his agent, there may have been some sort of communication back and forth yet, but it obviously doesn't seem like anything's forthcoming or that we should expect any extension or anything along those lines. So it sounds like this is going to be a day-to-day thing, and we'll see what happens as the days progress here.
Sure. I guess the question is, could this really occur throughout the entire summer? Is it possible, if a deal does not happen until late in the process, as it did with TJ Watt, or if it does not happen at all, does that just mean Deontay Johnson's not going to practice until week 1 before they get ready for the Bengals? I mean, that's the thought we had with Watt last year. That's what it eventually amounted to, and that'll be the discussion and the question this year.
I think my new favorite word, plausible, and has been for a while. I'm not going to. I don't know which way this thing's going to go. Obviously, he's getting the advice, taking the advice, I think, from his agent. We see, not that it matters, but we see other wide receivers around the league doing the same thing, right? DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuels is another one, and obviously Deontay Johnson. So this might be a thing that we're talking about, daily going forward, just like we were last year with TJ Watt. And I think the overarching kind of speculation from most is that that Deontay's not going to get a deal, but it still could happen from a cap perspective, and it's just the same old thing we've been talking about with Deontay and his contract all offseason. Will he or won't he?
Right, and we'll continue that going forward, but lot of other stuff to talk about today, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. It is, of course, a big story, but ultimately, bottom line is he didn't work. 89 other guys, 80-something other guys worked, and that's where the focus is really at today.
All right, and we'd like to go position group by position group with this, right? So you want to kind of start with the quarterbacks?
Sure. And I have, I'll start things off here with the camp stats. And I know some people, and they're just camp stats. I'm not beholden to them, but, people are going to be interested in playing the comparison game. So here's where things stand after day one. Mason Rudolph, 7-9 for 46 yards. Kenny Pickett, 4-7, 21 yards with an interception. Talk about that in a moment. Mitch Trubisky, 3-7 for 10 yards. Again, in a bridge practice today, fewer reps overall. Don't get too caught up in the numbers overall. Thought the quarterbacks overall were pretty conservative. A lot of checkdowns. Running backs probably leading today in targets and catches overall. A couple times they tried to push the ball down the field. Not a lot of success. George Pickens nearly came in with a good throw from Trubisky. Pickett had the only turnover of the day. Kind of a short arm ball that hung that was picked off by Carlin Splittell. So again, not going to overreact to one day, good, bad, or otherwise with any of these quarterbacks. The pecking order loosely was still Trubisky, Rudolph, Pickett. There was maybe a little bit of mixing and matching. Well, not even that. Maybe very, very early on, there was some mixing and matching with like Pickett and Rudolph, but in team drills, it very much went Trubisky 1, Rudolph 2, Pickett 3, and then Chris Oladokun playing the Josh Dobbs role last year of getting 0 reps in team today.
All right, and one thing we didn't note, not in pads and not going to be in pads, I don't think, until after they return from their first off day, which I believe is Sunday, correct?
Yeah, I have to look back at the information again, but I want to say the first 3 practices are not allowed to be in pads. They'll be in just shorts and shells, and then I think the 4th day that the pads can come on.
All right, some quarterbacks on the move, right?
Yeah, and again, this isn't brand new, but just watching the first individual positional drills of the quarterbacks today, they were booting, they were rolling out. You saw some of that in the team session as well. And again, that is not brand new, but there's going to be an emphasis on that. It's a more mobile quarterback room overall with Trubisky, with Kenny Pickett, with Oladokun. So I think the overall, launch points are going to shift. You're going to see more boots. You saw some play action today. So just quarterback movement was up, expected in the post Ben Roethlisberger era.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add about the quarterbacks overall?
I mean, that was a pretty clean day. There weren't too many, terrible passes. Really good. No issues with the exchange from, running back perspective. From a jet sweep, they ran a couple of receiver jet runs today. Obviously, center quarterback exchanges were all clean. So from that standpoint, I think a pretty fundamental day one, and not a whole lot to talk about. But those are the stats. And again, Pickett with the pick being kind of the most notable play of the day.
All right, you want to talk about some running backs? Not that you can tell a whole heck of a lot with, just kind of thudding, I guess, going on there. But you want to talk about lines and all?
Right, yeah, running back, not too much to note there. Najee Harris still number 1, Benny Snell number 2. Pretty active day for Jeremy McNichols, despite just being signed. I would consider him the number 3 running back today. Don't have the exact stats on carries, but he saw a fair amount of time. Same with Jaylen Warren, who appears to be running very early on over Mateo Durant. Didn't note Anthony McFarland much today. Really didn't see him much. He was out there, maybe a couple of reps, but I think maybe 1 carry overall. So we'll see where that leads. But again, some catches. McNichols, Snell had some receptions on checkdowns. Not too terribly much to note just because it is non-contact. It's very similar to OTAs today. Okay. I don't want to make too much out of it because it's a lower energy. There is no contact and a little less to really learn from.
Boy, McFarland is a guy we better start talking about at some point here, right?
Yeah, just from a rep standpoint, I'd be curious to kind of see where that's at. I mean, the one run he had was fine. It was a good lead block from Derek Watt and then picked up 5-6 yards, but I just didn't see him carry the ball really, I don't believe, outside of that one play.
All right. Anything else to add about running backs?
Connor Hayward moved around quite a bit. I think in warmups, they were working him as like an outside receiver. He was, the Y off tight end, kind of moved around quite a bit, good amount of motion. And so that's expected with him to be someone that can be active, that can wear a lot of hats and not be stagnant playing just one position to kind of move around. So some early signs of that.
All right. Before we get to the offensive line, how about wide receivers next? Obviously, not having Deontay out there in team. I think Cody White and George Pickens, the big beneficiaries today, right?
Yeah, I would say so. And Cody White, probably more so in particular, because if Deontay was practicing, Cody White would not be getting the first team reps that he did. And so you saw an increase there. You saw Pickens get a lot of work early. Chase Claypool in the slot. Don't have the exact number on that, but certainly getting reps in the slot. And he's been talking about that for quite some time. So, we'll see if that continues, how that looks if and when Deontay Johnson returns to team drills and all that. Pickens, had a couple good chances today, just trying to finish the play. There was one in 7-on-7 where he caught the ball, but it looked like it was out of bounds against Cam Sutton on a deep go route down the left sideline. Another one in that first team session, trying to make this acrobatic falling catch from Trubisky. Could not finish the play, caught it, but lost it on his way down. And so you got to be able to finish the play. That's the big thing there.
As advertised so far with one practice, right? With him?
Yeah, in terms of the springiness, the ability to, show some speed, to adjust the poorly thrown footballs or off-target footballs. I mean, he's showing that, but you do want to see
Body
those
control.
almost catches. Yeah, but you want to see the almost catches become actual catches.
All right. Talk about the rest of the groups, kind of, the way you saw them kind of filter in.
Yeah, that can be tougher to do because there is so much rotation. Anthony Miller saw maybe more targets than anyone else today. A lot of crossing over type routes.
Was he slot or what?
Yeah, I don't know if I have that specifically noted, but just thinking about that, yeah, I think he was seeing quite a bit of work in the slot, which is of no surprise.
Right.
Calvin Austin did have, and again, this is where the non-contact gets a little weird. There was a screen, kind of a bubble screen that he did race into the end zone right side. That would have been, 55 or so yards, but it is non-contact. So you kind of wonder, would he have gotten through all that? Otherwise, there's probably some debate you can have about that kind of stuff. But in that moment, you could see the speed that Calvin Austin possesses.
All right. Anybody else in the kind of bottom third of the wide receiver depth chart?
Not in particular. Again, just fewer plays to talk about today. And the second team session was a, generally speaking, run-oriented session. Just some of the receiver runs. Cody White had a carry. Tyler Snead had a carry. And so you're seeing some of the jet plays that should be very much in vogue this year for the, fully run Matt Canada-led offense.
Was Claypool pretty much predominantly slot?
I don't know if I would say that. Maybe half, if I had to guess. I don't have the exact number on that, but a solid amount of work in the slot for sure.
All right. Something to pay attention to moving forward there. Anything else about the wide receiver group?
No, I think that covers it pretty well.
All right. How about tight ends real quick? I know there's not a lot there to talk about. Freiermuth, Gentry, those guys are going to be your top two. You already covered a little bit of what Connor Hayward did behind him, what Kevin Rader and Sternberger.
Yeah, not a whole lot to talk about there. Sternberger saw a couple of targets, had one nice catch with UG3 draped all over him. But other than that, Freiermuth, don't think he was targeted. Gentry, maybe one target. I have to go back and check my notes on that, but pretty quiet day from the tight end group. It was the running backs who were soaking up all the checkdowns and safety valve targets today.
It's too early to overreact to it, but a lot of two tight end sets or no? I mean, it's something kind of we thought might be the case here.
Yeah, the thing is, though, you see that really in any camp. The run sessions, they're going to go heavier. So I'd have to really try to dial in if it is more or not. There was certainly that feel out there today, no question about it. They did open 11 personnel the first snap of camp, whatever that's worth. But I don't want to say it's okay. More so or uncommon just because, we'll see that every camp, especially in the run heavy sessions. All right,
Najee, as you predicted, going to be real light camp for him, you think?
I think so. Again, today's a tough day to gauge because it is no full contact. Once the pads come on and guys are going to the ground, then you really see how much they want to work. Najee, I imagine it won't be much, if at all, and that's a totally, I think, fine position to take. But today, his snaps were, I would consider normal, just given the OTA feel of it all.
All right, how about the offensive line and more importantly, who ran where?
Yeah, let me pull up the lines here. And again, the theme of today was a little bit of rotation in terms of offensive line and other positions as well. Receiver room, we'll talk about the inside linebackers, cornerbacks here in a moment. But generally speaking, the way they ran, first team offensive line, as expected, Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle, Kevin Dotson at left guard, Mason Cole at center, James Daniels at right guard, Chukwuma Okorafor at right tackle. Kendrick Green did work first team left guard during the second team session. So there's your rotation there. But during the first team session, he was second team. It was Trent Scott at left tackle, Kendrick Green at left guard, Chasey Hassenauer at center, John LeGlue at right guard, Joe Haig at right tackle, and then third team offensive line, Jake Dixon left tackle, Chaz Green at left guard after playing right tackle for Pittsburgh last year in training camp, Nate Gilliam at center, wondered if he was going to move inside. He did. Chris Owens at right guard, and Jordan Tucker, the rookie from North Carolina, at right tackle. So those are your 15 guys and your three lines.
Okay, and no Kendrick Green at center, right?
Correct. Not even in warm-ups before practice really got started. It was actually Owens, Hassenauer, and Cole working center stuff on the side. I didn't see Gillum until actually team drill started. But Green, total left guard, 100%. That's where he's going to work this year. At least it appears to be.
And you said Trent Scott, backup left tackle?
Yeah, second string left tackle. Wasn't sure where he would be, but yeah, that's a good thing for him to start camp.
Absolutely. All right. Anything stick out in any of that at all? Now that you're past the lines, the rotations and all?
Right. Not too terribly much. Again, no contact, no O-line, D-line. It is harder. Jake Dixon did have a nice snap there, bearing whoever the edge rusher was left side. I will say Zach Gentry, and going back to the tight ends briefly, had to try to block TJ Watt once, and that did not go well and led to a pressure. But from an offensive line standpoint, today was really for me about trying to see who was running where. Again, you do have some sort of battle there between Dotson and Green to see who comes out on top. Dotson would be the favorite right now, but we'll see what happens. In terms of actual performance or play, hard for me to get a good gauge on things.
All right. How about any overarching thoughts on the offense as a whole coming out of day one? And I know there's not much there, but
right.
just your kind of a major takeaway from the offense.
Well, I would say the defense was the better unit of the two today, which can be even tougher because typically in these non-contact moments, the offense is at the advantage. The quarterback already can't be touched, and now the rest of the players can't be touched and tackled and hit hard or anything like that. But the defense still made plays both in run session and during the passing session. So I'll give the day to the defense overall. In terms of the offensive thoughts, again, a lot of the receiver jet plays, a couple of screens to receivers, Pickens and Calvin Austin, quarterbacks generally on the move. I want to say just generally speaking, the hallmarks of the Matt Canada run offense.
All right. Obviously, we talked about, the 90 and 30 on the Terrible podcast episodes, going through the 90 players. We speculated a lot about what this offense might look like, all like that. Was there anything that caught you by surprise on the offensive side of football today?
Anything that caught me by surprise.
Yeah, that you go, wow,
Trent Scott being second team left tackle, a little bit. Maybe that was my own bias and preconceived notions about where he would be. Cody White getting some playing time. You can't forget about a guy like that, a guy that was on this roster last year. They know him pretty well. He's versatile, a good special teams player, does all the little things well. And so I know he'll have a battle for sure. Miles Boykin was pretty quiet today. I didn't have him in my notes too terribly much. He was out there, obviously, but whenever they break up into kind of like, when quarterbacks are throwing to receivers, there's like a first team group and a second team group, although they probably wouldn't call it that. But the first team group had Cody White in it. The second team group had Miles Boykin in it with guys like Tyler Snead and the bottom of the depth chart kind of guys, Tyler Vaughn's, guys like that. So just a curiosity. And again, it's very early. We'll see if things change. They certainly can. But to see a lot of Cody White and not as much of Miles Boykin, that's an interesting takeaway.
All right, defensive side of football, defensive line. Ogunjobi limited, not doing much outside of maybe some drills. You don't have Tyson Alualu out there. What else you got?
Yeah, I think the one guy that caught my attention today was DeMarvin Leal. Had a really good play in run session, and it was just one play that I saw, but knife through, beat a block or something, and forced Benny Snell to cut back. Really was disruptive on that play. And so he was working in as a nickel pass rusher or nickel packages and not playing in the base defense to start the nickel defensive lineman were Chris Wormley and Cam Hayward, because Larry Ogunjobi was not working in team today. In base, it was I think Wormley at left defensive end, Montravius Adams at nose tackle, Cam Hayward, but Leal was rotating in and some of that sub package kind of stuff, and maybe showed some of that quick burst step and hand usage to get off of blocks that got him drafted out of Texas A&M. And so that was probably the biggest takeaway that I had there. Donovan Jeter, the undrafted rookie from Michigan, playing some nose tackle as well. Carlos Davis at left defensive end today, 13 next to Donovan Jeter, and then Khalil Davis at right defensive end. So the Davis twins playing on the same team on opposite sides, and so those are my takeaways today.
All right, so who your nose tackles were Adams and then Jeter,
right? And those were, I believe, the only two. There was no obviously Tyson Alualu, and there was really no third string nose tackle.
And Loudermilk was in the second team, right? At one of the ends, you said.
I'm trying to think who was second team left defensive end today in base. I'd have to go back and check that. He probably was. I think Wormley was first team left defensive end. I know Loudermilk and Mondale were running in that third team pairing at defensive tackle in the nickel packages. So I know that for a fact on Loudermilk.
Okay, so maybe Liao. I won't say it's probably a third round draft pick, but caught your eye a little bit more than maybe what you expected first day.
And again, it is just one play that I saw, but it's a good start to the process, is what I'll say.
All right. How about some linebackers there? And I think Mike Tomlin talked about some mixing and matching, and I think cheated off your notes there that rookie Mark Robinson can run with some people, can he?
Yeah, I think the defensive rookies who were drafted today kind of caught my attention the most. Mark Robinson and DeMarvin Leal. And Robinson looked better in coverage because that was the concern with him. Could he move in space? Could he run backwards? Could he cover? He's a former running back. He played at Presbyterian and Southeast Missouri and 1 year at Ole Miss. And he was a downhill player, run and chase kind of dude. Could he be that well-rounded guy? And again, it is just one day, but had a nice forced incompletion in that first team session on a pass from, I think it was Pickett to Jay Sternberger, and then even had 7-on-7, had a catch allowed, but had good coverage on Kevin Rader, just a really well-thrown ball by Kenny Pickett. So I like to see that from him. Other notes here, Jannard Avery, Derek Tuska, second team outside linebackers, of course, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, your first team guys there. Let's see what else I have. TJ Watt was obviously excellent today, had a pressure and blew up a run play to Benny Snell right side for a loss there. So TJ Watt did TJ Watt things, no surprise there.
Okay, and Buddy Johnson?
Yeah, the rotation that Tomlin talked about was, it was Devin Bush, Miles Jack, and then Robert Spillane would rotate in with Devin Bush. And Tomlin framed that as allowing more chances for Buddy Johnson. I'll have to get a better feel tomorrow, but it felt like Buddy Johnson was kind of more still third team inside linebacker opposite of Marcus Allen, and actually kind of felt like at times it was UG3 and Mark Robinson second team, but I want to go back and check that for tomorrow. But that was part of the rotation that I referenced earlier, was seeing some Spillane mixing with Devin Bush, and Tomlin saying it might be a little less about Bush versus Spillane and more about allowing the guys behind them to get more reps. And so that's, to me, is one of the most competitive roster battles of the summer, is that backup inside linebacker spot. And really the fact that Spillane was rotating first team says he's not really in that battle the way that a Robinson or a Gilbert or an Allen or a Johnson is. And so your top three really should be Bush, Jack, Spillane, and then the other guys will battle it out for presumably 2 spots.
All right. And you mentioned that Jack and Bush were over working on some hand drills and stuff and simulating getting off blocks and all.
Yeah, just hitting the blocking slits and working on their punch, hand placement, leverage with Brian Flores. That was during the special team sessions. And so it's just good to see guys get extra work in and during a downtime when players could, chill out if they wanted to and just stand on the sidelines, get a drink of water, shoot the breeze. But those guys were still working. And so that's the impact of Brian Flores. He's going to make those guys work the way that probably Alfredo Roberts really worked the tight end group hard last year and into this year as well. It really helped develop quickly guys like Pat Fryermuth and Zach Gentry. So that is the value of hard workers and the value of good coaches.
Well, they need their inside linebackers to be so much better this year, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is do or die for Devin Bush, and just so tired of them trying to find the answer at inside linebacker. And is it Avery Williamson or Joe Schobert or now hopefully Miles Jack and Devin Bush, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully something finally sticks.
All right, cornerbacks.
Let's see. Cornerbacks, Justin Lane, Cam Sutton. Top names on the list today. Lane had probably the play of the day in terms of a breakup on a crossing pattern.
That's good to hear. It's nice to talk about him on the first day of camp in a positive manner.
Right. Not just like, well, Lane's a gunner and that's like what he is, like a different conversation. It's nice. Cam Sutton's battles with George Pickens today were really good. They reminded me of the ones that Sutton had early in camp last year against Chase Claypool, where Sutton's a real gamer. He doesn't have the physical tools of a Claypool or a Pickens, obviously, but really is combative and will make some of those plays. Carlin Patel obviously had the interception, took advantage of a poorly thrown pass overall. When they shot up to find the football, actually make the play. That's always important. And then again, seeing some of that rotation between Levi Wallace and Kelly Witherspoon. I think Witherspoon technically got the first couple of reps there, but Wallace would rotate in as well. You saw Cam Sutton a bit in the slot, then Arthur Millette in the slot, and also Carl Joseph playing some slot today. So trying to increase his value, his versatility.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add about the cornerback position?
That's probably it overall, but I thought a good day for the cornerbacks. Again, I thought defense overall won the day, and the cornerbacks were certainly part of that.
All right, safeties. Obviously, no Minka Fitzpatrick, and I think DeMonte Casey was the the winner of the extra reps there with the starters, correct?
He was, yeah. He was first team free safety today, so that's a good start for him. We'll see where it leads. And then you had obviously Terrell Edmonds opposite, like I mentioned, Carl Joseph playing some safety, playing some slots, so getting some extra versatility out of him. Everyone else relatively quiet. I think Norwood played a little bit in the slot as well, also playing safety as well. Donovan Steiner is there as well, and so we'll see if Killebrew's hurt. Could that open the door a bit for Carl Joseph or Donovan Steiner? That could certainly be the case.
Yeah, look, and I think Steiner's the guy that you kind of mentioned there right before camp. That keep an eye on that guy, right?
Yeah, that's one of my personal guys, but he'll have a tough climb for sure. He's got to play extremely well to try to get in this conversation. And we hope Killebrew's okay. But if he's not, then that's going to open the door probably first for Carl Joseph, but Steiner can make a push as well.
All right, and you think overall you want to walk us through some of the sessions real quick?
Yeah, just in terms of a recap of what happened, or
yeah. Any big plays that stick out, or 11 on 11, or that kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah. First team session, Trubisky got off to a not great start. Went 0 for his first 3 on the day before completing that one. But again, I don't get too caught up in that. I know some other people will. Pickett's first completion was a check down to Jeremy McNichols for about a gain of 4. So that's what happened there. Second team session was mostly a run session. Defense did well overall. Not a whole lot to note. I think Mason had a good completion to Gunnar Olszewski on a crosser. Then third team session, the big play there was the interception from Carlin Spiltel on the final play of the day. So that was a good note for the defense to go out on.
All right. Just as we did on the offensive side of the ball, anything surprise you overall? Did you come away with, oh, wow, you already had indicated on the offensive side of football there, anything stick out to you that surprised you on defense?
I think just the defensive rookies, like I mentioned, when you saw Leal make plays, be disruptive. Same with Mark Robinson, Carlin Spiltel. I love my plucky tryout cornerbacks, and that's Carlin Spiltel for sure. One of the guys I called a potential camp sleeper. So seeing those guys make plays was nice. Just the overall ability for the defense to make plays in the football in these non-contact sessions. Cam Sutton breaking up passes well contested overall across the board. Just a good day for the defense.
All right, how about a tip of the cap to Danny Smith forever, and how about an up back report?
Yeah, Trey Norwood working as the starting up back. Was Marcus Allen's job last year?
I read your notes.
I know you do. The camp diary. But yeah, he was first team. Jalen Warren second team. Marcus Allen working as a wing. Mateo Durant as a wing. Not sure if I would love Mateo Durant at I don't know. He's kind of small to be a wing for me on the punt team,
it's too early for. I understand why they want to just take a look at him, but I'm not excited to see it in season. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know if Presley Harvin's going to want to see that. He's got a job to win. He doesn't need, his rookie running back who's 195 pounds getting blown up. But we'll see where that one goes.
Do you think that's a sign that with Norwood as the up is that maybe a little bit of writing on the wall?
It doesn't hurt to be in that position. Now, Allen was working that wing spot, so that's a starting spot as well. You don't want to ignore that. We'll monitor it. We'll see what happens. Maybe Allen is comfortable with that job. They want to give someone else a look that if Allen never got hurt or wasn't around for whatever reason, maybe that's a calculation. But it is just day one, and we'll see how things look in game.
All right, Presley Harvin III, do any booming or anything?
Nope, no punts today, just simulated stuff. That'll happen. It's a rotational thing. Special teams is harder to rep. You kind of have to work on different things on different days. And so today was just very much kind of just snap blocking in terms of the punt block or the punt block team versus the punt protection team, but no actual punts from. And also, by the way, Cameron Nizelik listed as 16 on the Steelers site. He's number 4. It's Nick Skiba who's 16. So if you're wondering, and I bet you no one is, but if you're wondering, Nizelik 4, Skiba 16.
Look, we got smart listeners. They probably some people scoring at home.
That's true. That's fair. Well, there's a point for you.
All right. Any other overarching thoughts as we start to wind this down?
Let me check. Yeah, let me check my notes here. Yeah, not a whole lot. Again, a lot of rotation, and so I used the first couple of days, especially in these kind of OTA-esque practices. There's more fact finding to see where guys are lining up, who's running where, just the overall ebb and flow. Not that that's set in stone, but you just like a good baseline to get into. So whenever the pads come on, I'm less focused on, okay, who's running where. I'm more focused on who is playing well and who is not. But it is day one. There wasn't a ton of action today, so you don't want to overreact to that, good or bad. And it's really more about how guys can string practices together, have good days. If they had a bad day today, turn it around for tomorrow. If they had a good day today, keep that going for tomorrow and through the rest of the summer. That's the real key. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and that's the goal.
All right. As we talked about in our pre-production meeting, which you missed.
I'm sorry.
It was a one-man pre-production meeting. No, Alex, we don't have pre-production meetings around here. I thought I'd hit you with this every episode of this. Instead of winners, losers, that kind of stuff, just give me one overreaction for today. Overreact to something. Give the listeners an overreaction. That way we can go back and say, well, see, Alex overreacted to that. But if something doesn't happen, we can say it was just an overreaction. That way
right.
You're going to be right either way here, Alex. I'm setting you up for a win here.
Well, those are my favorite games. If Mark Robinson can cover and play in space, you might have something with him. I mean, he's just a big lump of clay as a one-year starter. So you didn't really want to say what he could or couldn't do. You just kind of want to throw him out there and see what happens. And being a running back, I mean, he understands short area quickness and movement and has that kind of good feel and vision. And maybe playing running back helps him out a linebacker a little bit about, how a linebacker covers you whenever you're running an option route or coming out of the backfield when you're covering tight ends like he did today. So I don't know. Robinson, I just saw some traits there that were pretty interesting.
All right. So the overreaction would be look out for Mark Robinson, right?
Yeah. Mark Robinson to the Hall of Fame. That is my overreaction.
I don't want to go that big on these overreactions. I like it. I like it, though. I do like that, though. And I think that that's something to for the listeners to maybe kind of get excited about every night there. All right. Anything else? Crowd's good and all?
Yeah, it was a little bit lighter today. Probably the rain plus it being on a Wednesday isn't helping things. But it's literally the second I got out of my car, I saw the Steelers Pope. You know who the Steelers Pope is? You know who I'm talking about? The guy who dresses up like the Steelers Pope. And he was at camp. He's always there. So that's when I knew, okay, training camp is officially back.
All right. Shall we wrap it up?
Yeah. Also, by the way, training camp, there was tickets and like metal detectors. It was very different. But I'm glad that Latrobe's doing that because for the longest time, you could just literally just walk. I mean, do whatever you want. And like security was non-existent. So I feel honestly a little bit safer now that that's been implemented.
Does it make the time? Do people listening that are going out there need to prepare for a little bit extra time or anything or?
Not really. I mean, it was pretty streamlined overall. If you are maybe have something like, obviously going to get dinged by a metal detector, just be aware of that. They may have to check you for that. Actually, almost was quicker because before they would have to stop and search your bag. Now you just walk through with your bag. If you get dinged, they'll look at it. If not, then you're good to go. So in some ways it's better. But again, make sure if you are going to camp, you do need tickets. They're free. You can get them on Ticketmaster, but you will have to present and have your tickets scanned.
All right. So with that, obviously this was kind of a, 40-minute recap, if you will. Alex's full daily diaries are up on SteelersDepot.com. So if you want more detailed information, make sure you stop by the site and check that out every night. That post should usually be pinned to the top of the front page of the website every day on top of it there. So, man, Alex, so glad to have you back out there. I know you're excited to be back out there. You'll be back out there again on Thursday, and we'll be back Thursday night with another one of these recaps here moving forward. So you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. More importantly, though, follow Alex Kozora on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. You can email us theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button that way as well too. And if you want to donate, there's a PayPal link up there if you feel the need to go that route as well too. So as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast, and specifically this special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Training Camp 2022 with Dave and Alex. Good night.